Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Wednesday, November 24th. This is Africa 54.
Residents patrol Ethiopia's capital of Addis Ababa after Tigrayan forces advance. A closer look at the Ghanaian building Africa's largest photo library. And recycling tires puts a Senegalese entrepreneur on the road to success.
Switzerland has become the latest country to advise its citizens to leave Ethiopia as the security situation worsens in the country. Switzerland's foreign ministry on Wednesday also advised Swiss citizens against traveling to Ethiopia for any reason. Germany urged its nationals on Tuesday to leave Ethiopia on the first available commercial flight, joining France and the United States, which have also told their citizens to leave immediately. The United Nations says it is for the time being relocating families of international staff from Ethiopia due to the security situation, according to UN spokesman Stefan Dujarric. However, UN personnel would remain in the country. On Wednesday, the Irish Foreign Minister, Simon Coveney, said Ethiopia has expelled 4 of its 6 Irish diplomats from the country because of Ireland's stance on the conflict there. Meanwhile, tens of thousands of residents in Addis Ababa have signed up for defense groups after rebellious Tigrayan forces threatened to march on the capital. Vincent McCory has more.
The clank of heavy sticks on Addis Ababa's pavement means the defense group is coming. These are volunteers among tens of thousands of them who joined such groups after Tigrayan forces threatened to march on the Ethiopian capital. Dressed in bright orange vests, they search pedestrians and cars for weapons and suspects. Among them, 55-year-old construction worker Getachew Mergesa.
I'm now safeguarding my city with a stick. But if it's required and they give me a weapon, I will do the same.
And it wouldn't be the first time the former soldier has taken up arms against the Tigray People's Liberation Front. He spent 12 years in the military under the Marxist Dark regime, toppled in 1991 by the Tigrayan rebels and their allies. The TPLF then dominated government for nearly 3 decades, ruling with increasing authoritarianism.
There is no way they will be able to rule Ethiopia again.
When Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came to power in 2018, relations quickly soured, leading to the war that broke out a year ago. Tigrayan forces have recaptured most of Tigray and pushed into neighboring regions, prompting Abiy to declare a 6-month state of emergency. It allows suspects to be detained without trial for the length of the proclamation and house-to-house searches without warrants. Some Tigrayans say they are being unfairly targeted because of their ethnicity. Thousands have been arrested in several waves since the war began. Ethiopian police say they are detaining suspected TPLF operatives. Commander Solomon Fantahun of the Addis Ababa City Police Commission said 147,000 volunteers have been trained in combating crime, community policing, discipline, and physical fitness. 2,000 have received additional training in conducting searches and assisting the police. He says they have helped capture weapons and direct police to suspects. A TPLF spokesperson was unavailable for comment on the defense groups. Getachew says he's working with certainty that there are infiltrators in the city working for the TPLF. There are plenty of them, he says, who have lived with us for years. Vincent McCory, Washington.
Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta arrived in South Africa on Tuesday for a 2-day visit. Among the issues discussed were a coup in Sudan and war in Ethiopia. Clara Frank has more.
A military band welcomed Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta to South Africa on Tuesday, where the main topics being discussed were how to promote peace on the continent That includes Sudan, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa said, following a military coup last month.
We strongly condemn any unconstitutional change of government and call on the parties to engage in constructive, good faith and peaceful dialogue to restore the country's constitutional order.
Ramaphosa said the two leaders also had discussed the grave situation in Ethiopia.
We expressed our conviction that there is scope for dialogue amongst the warring parties in Ethiopia, and that there is an urgent need for all parties to the conflict to commit to an immediate, indefinite, and negotiated ceasefire and an all-inclusive political dialogue.
On Monday, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed vowed to join his troops on the front line in the fight against rebellious Tigrayan forces. Clara Frank, Washington.
Sudanese Prime Minister Abdalla Hamdok will review appointments and dismissals made by the military to key state posts, according to a statement from the General Secretariat of the Cabinet. After seizing power on October 25th, Sudan's military leaders drew on veteran ex-officials of toppled leader Omar al-Bashir for important positions in the state bureaucracy. Hamdok, who was arrested during the coup and then reinstated under a deal with the military reached on Sunday, issued a directive to freeze all hiring and dismissals in state jobs. Hamdok is also due to name a cabinet of technocrats under his deal with the military, but faces a challenge winning support from civilian groups. Sudan's pro-democracy protest movement, which is planning more rallies on Thursday, has stated its opposition to the agreement, as have political parties that had been sharing power with the military before the coup. Turning to West Africa, many of the 49 soldiers killed in a recent attack on a military outpost in Burkina Faso were buried on Tuesday, even as the government reported a separate deadly attack. Rhiannon Oliver reports.
Flatbed trucks carried the bodies of military police officers to their funeral in Burkina Faso on Tuesday. Many of the 49 gendarmes killed in a strike on a security outpost were buried in the capital, Ouagadougou. The November 14th attack in northern Burkina Faso, in which 4 civilians were also killed, was the worst loss suffered by state security forces in recent years. And even the day before mourners gathered for the mass burial, another attack was announced. A further 9 gendarmes and around 10 civilians killed in the central north region, according to the government. No further details were given. At the cemetery, friends and family members expressed their anger with the government. There have been reports that the gendarmes had run out of food and had been forced to scavenge and hunt near the outpost. Okiri Mien is a family member.
What's painful is to know that you were communicating less than 3 hours before with a family member who was telling you that he was hungry and thirsty.
He and others also objected to the manner of the burials, with some saying their loved ones were being buried like dogs. A 4-year insurgency has killed thousands and forced more than 1 million people to flee their homes. The escalating bloodshed has provoked protests and calls for President Roch Kabore to resign.
Rhiannon Oliver of Reuters reporting. A new United Nations report says West and Central Africa has recorded the highest number of children recruited into conflict of any region in the world, and the number is growing. Children are used as fighters, as well as messengers, spies, cooks, cleaners, guards and porters by armed groups from Mali to Democratic Republic of Congo, according to the UNICEF report released on Tuesday. The United Nations verified about 21,000 children as being recruited by armed forces and non-state armed groups in the region between 2016 and 2020, the same number as in the whole preceding decade. West Africa and Central Africa has multiple ongoing conflicts. In one particularly horrific case, Burkina Faso's government said that a massacre in which more than 130 people were killed in June had been carried out mostly by children between the ages of 12 and 14. Ghanaian photographer Paul Ninson has searched New York's bookshops and storage containers to amass what he believes is the world's largest collection of African photography books, which he now plans to house in a new library in Accra. David Doyle has more.
In a New York storage unit, Ghanaian photographer Paul Ninson is sorting through photography books and decades-old National Geographic magazines. This is just a fraction of the 30,000 African photo books he has collected, with which he intends to open Africa's largest photographic library.
My way through photography was just looking at magazines and photography books. Some of these pictures are incredible. Some of these pictures tell stories of places, but mostly sometimes what I wonder is, what if those people in those communities contribute to these stories in a way of self-expression of who they are? Do people in these communities accept how they are being depicted, especially the Africans?
Ninson began collecting shortly after arriving in New York on a photography scholarship in 2019. While most New Yorkers were staying at home during the global health crisis, he was sifting through storage containers and struggling bookshops, working odd jobs and taking out personal loans to cover the costs of his obsession. He believes he's amassed the world's largest collection of African photography books.
I was constantly emailing people, constantly emailing galleries, collections, private collectors, and telling them my vision and what I want to do.
When his friend Brandon Stanton discovered what Ninson was doing, he promoted it on his blog alongside a crowdfunding campaign. That blog is the world-famous Humans of New York, and the campaign raised $1 million in a single day. Next month, Ninson returns to Ghana's capital, Accra, where 18,000 of his books have already been shipped. There he plans to build the Decan Center, a museum and learning institution where aspiring African photographers can take workshops, rent equipment, and access studio space.
Sometimes people see somebody like me differently. Why? Because the narrative which has been perpetrated for years has eroded in the people's mind, and that is what is affecting my country and my Africa and people like me. Why? Because we've left the space for so long for people to tell their stories and distribute their stories. And that is what I want to be able to fill that, give the tools and the resources to African photographers and to Black people to be able to tell our stories.
That was David Doyle of Reuters reporting. Discarded tires can be an eyesore or a resource. In Senegal, a group of business students started a business that is giving old tires a second life. Alison Lekogo Fernandez reports from Dakar.
This is the company 26-year-old Yaiswadou Fall started with a business school classmate in Dakar. Here, old tires that once littered the environment are being turned into usable materials for things like floor tiles, playground surfaces, artificial turf, and more. The classmates came up with this idea from a school assignment where they were asked to identify a problem and find an innovative solution. Now, the company called eCover employs some 30 people.
We have this machine, which the workers call Paul, that cuts the tires into really long strips. I call that tire spaghetti. And we have this machine, which the workers call John, that cuts the tires into small, shredded pieces.
She started eCover in 2015 with financing from Week Capital, an investment fund supporting female entrepreneurship in West Africa. Fall, who has a master's degree in business administration, is the company's CEO.
We have the 0.5 millimeter size, which is very, very fine, and can be used for children's play areas and basketball courts, among others. The 2 millimeter shredded aggregate looks like this. It gets turned into the synthetic turf used by sports complexes.
eCover is the first company in Senegal to manufacture tire aggregate that meets the standards of FIFA, the international soccer governing body for use in artificial turf. Fall set up a lab that tests the aggregate to ensure quality control.
FIFA has the right to say that the players do not play on artificial turf if it is not up to standard. Suddenly, it is very important for us to respect these standards. That's why we created this lab. We hope to expand and further develop it in the future.
Radim Bai directs the municipal stadium in Malika, about 30 kilometers northeast of Dakar. He says it costs less to buy the aggregate from a local supplier.
Instead of going to Turkey for supplies, we found aggregate of the same quality on site and on the spot. It's better. It saved us a loan costs.
Fal said she hopes that e-covers products will fuel the construction of more sports fields and thus promote football in Africa. Alison Lekogo-Fernandez for VOA News, Dakar, Senegal.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a Ugandan entrepreneur quits a corporate job to launch her line of beauty products. But first, here's Heidi Adams to tell us what's on tap on Wednesday's Straight Talk Africa. Stay with us.
Be sure to join me on the next Straight Talk Africa as we discuss the return of Africa's stolen art. France has repatriated 26 looted colonial-era artifacts to Benin. Now museums in Europe and the US are rethinking what to do with their African art collections. We'll speak to artists and museum curators about the colonial past of Africa's art and its future around the world. Join me, Heidi Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Thousands of Afghans flocked to the Kabul airport in a desperate bid to escape Afghanistan after the Taliban took control on August 15. 18-month-old Farzad arrived with his parents, who handed him across the barbed wire to an American Marine. VOA's Noshaba Ashna reports on the reunion of Farzad and his mother after 43 days, as well as her husband, who is still hoping to flee Afghanistan.
The father of 18-month-old Farzad worked for the U.S. Embassy in Kabul. After the Taliban took over Afghanistan, Farzad's family raced to Kabul airport in hopes of being evacuated from the country.
Since my husband's life was in danger, we left our house and headed to the airport because we heard that Americans were evacuating people who worked with them.
U.S. Marines moved the children inside the airport to shelter them from the high heat and the huge crowds at the gates. Farzad's uncle Ahmad Zawarzada, who was also trying to get his family out, says Farzad was one of the children lifted over barbed wire.
The Marines asked us to give them our children so that they move them to the other side of the gate in the airport. We handed them 3 of our family's children.
The two families entered the airport 3 hours later and were reunited with 2 of the 3 children. But baby Farzad was nowhere to be seen.
After 3 hours of trying to get in, we finally succeeded. After searching for the kids, we found 2 of them. One of them was my little daughter, and the other one was my niece. But despite efforts, we failed to find the 3rd child.
Farzad's father went back outside the airport looking for his son.
When we lost our son in the airport, my husband left the airport to look for him. He would show my son's photo to everyone, hoping to find him. My husband stayed back to search for my son.
The two families made it out of Afghanistan to a camp in Qatar, leaving a father in search for his son in Kabul, an irony that still puzzles Wahida.
We were leaving my country because my husband's life was in danger. But at the end, it was my husband who stayed back and my son disappeared. Farzad's father is still at risk in Afghanistan.
For 17 days, the 18-year-old mother did not know her son's whereabouts or well-being.
I was feeling as if I were dead too. It's very difficult for a mother.
That all changed in a Qatari camp when the family received a message.
We hadn't been in communication with anyone in those 2 weeks. After 15 days, when I connected to the newly installed Wi-Fi in the camp, the first message that I noticed was from some folks in Norway. Their message said that Farzad was with them. We were relieved and thankful as they became Farzad's temporary parents.
Farzad stayed in Norway for 43 days while his mother was shifted to a camp in the U.S.
After we arrived in a refugee camp in the U.S., they transported our son from Norway. After confirming he was my child through a DNA test, they gave me my child.
The family resides in Richmond, Virginia, and are now praying for a reunion with Farzad's father, who is still in Kabul, hoping to be evacuated by the U.S. He requested his identity be kept secret for his safety.
I thank the U.S. for reuniting my son with his mother. I miss them a lot and request the U.S. government to include me in this process of evacuation. My family needs me, and I need my family.
For Noshaba Ashna in Richmond, Virginia, Bejan Hamdok, VOA News.
A Ugandan entrepreneur, Maxima Nsimenta, quit her corporate job in the oil and gas industry in the DRC and moved back to her home country, Uganda, to launch a lifestyle brand, Livara, a collection of natural hair and beauty products, as well as hair salons. What started as a small online business has now expanded to several outlets in Kampala. For more insight, Africa 54's technology correspondent Paul Ndiho via Skype spoke to Maxima Nsimenta, founder and CEO, Livara in Kampala, Uganda.
Maxima Nsimenta, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you, Paul, for having me.
You have a very fascinating story. You quit a corporate job where you're making some good money. A lot of people would say that's a significant amount of money. And you come out and start your brand. How has your brand been? What has it been like for you to pursue this dream in Uganda?
My plan A was to produce raw shea butter and export it in its raw form, because it was quick, easy money that I would then use to add value to these other products to put them on the market. We released the first product on the market. We were selling mainly through Facebook. We were averaging $800 on a good month back then for almost 1.5 years. And we have been growing. Right now, it's about 92% growth year on average. And we have 64 employees. That means we impact at least, that's times 4, 220 people in different families every day, because these are people who are directly dependent on us. I work with 2,000 shea farmers in northeastern Uganda, and these are people we impact yearly. Not only that, we also have scholarships for 7 of their children. So Livara pays for their education. I want to have like a group of children that I have supported from P1, that is year 1, till university. And then maybe they come back to work for the company as well. And then we've grown from just Facebook sales to now having 6 shops across Uganda, 5 in Kampala, 1 in Bara, and then 3 ultra-modern salons. We have 4 franchises lined up for opening by end of this year.
You just said that your company has been growing exponentially at maybe 92%, almost 100%. What has made that difference? Are you jumping from $800 sales to almost quadrupling that?
Never breaking off from the quality of product that we release. Then also being in touch with our customers. So we always release these videos, and then we do different communal outreaches just to keep the product in people's faces. Also, by opening salons and having our products exclusively used in the salons, creates for us a center of excellence where people actually see what we make being put to use, right? So that is what has made us grow. And then obviously word of mouth. Back then, yes, it was 800. Right now it's about $40,000 a month, which is really good. Yes, costs may still be high because of the fact that we are really working with natural butters.
Correct.
But in the end, the growth is real, and the people we are reaching are real.
Talk to me more about the kind of feedback that you are getting from your customers.
I can only tell that the customers are appreciating the brand from the revenues actually collected month on end, and the people that we are, reaching. So the feedback is good. We are managing natural hair. We are managing African skin using African organic products. We are on to something here, and we are not about to go back. So our feedback is also more like, what are you doing to tackle, different issues? Have you made hair gels? Are you making shower gels? Are you making, different products that we can use at home as a whole family?
What's your best selling product, and what's so unique about it?
Our best selling products are the natural hair products. The reason that they sell the most and they've made us quite a lot of money is that they are naturally hydrating. So we made, for example, this Tanzanite hair oil, and then there's a butter that is just like that, and then a conditioning detangler. This one is for children specifically. We also have another one for adults, and they are very easy to use. These I have in my home, so they may be slightly almost finished. They are very easy to use. They soften hair, and you can use them at home anytime. Then we also have products that are natural butters that are good for skin, African skin. This is almost done. I use this daily.
I've run out of time. I apologize for that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Way to go, Cimenta. And that was Africa 54's tech correspondent Paul Ndiho speaking to Maxim Cimenta, founder and CEO, Libara, in Kampala, Uganda. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.